Whoa, all right. Happy New Year. Another episode of Stand Tall, January 1st. We're going to do verse 4, 5, and 6 out of Weak Points and Strong, chapter 6. If the enemy is taking his ease, he can harass him. If well supplied with food, he can starve him out. If quietly encamped, he can force him to move. Verse 5. Appear at points which the enemy must hasten to defend. March swiftly to places where you are not expected. And then 6. An army may march great distances without distress, if it marches through country where the enemy is not. All right. 5 is solid here. Appear at points which the enemy must hasten to defend. So if you're quick to control your emotions, if you're quick to make judgment calls for any kind of situation, that's why we need to know inherently like all of these tactics. March swiftly to places where you're not expected. Be there early type of deal, or at least like be incredibly efficient. An army may march great distances without distress if it marches through country where the enemy is not. You can do a lot if your anxiety is not, if your worry is not constantly near. If you're able to control those by hastening to points and marching swiftly that you're not expected, then the enemy will never be as near as possible. So, okay, so I had to cut that one. Normally we don't. Normally these are just unscripted and we just go through these. But we have chicken coop and a cam and a fox that's after the chickens. And so literally as we're talking about moving swiftly and places about the enemy and we're in the art of war, I got a thing I had to go check. So here I'm back, but the chickens are good. So yes, so appear at points which the enemy must hasten to defend, march swiftly to places where you're not expected. It's universal. All right, so we're gonna go over here to an alternate translation just to get some better perspective. Master Sun says, so when opponents are at ease, it is possible to tire them. When they are well fed, it is possible to starve them. When they are at rest, it is possible to move them. So no matter what the situation, no matter how fortified the enemy, we have options. Cao Cao says, you cause them trouble with some affair. You cut off their supply routes to starve them. You attack what they like and appear where they will go, thus causing opponents to have to go to the rescue. Li Quan says, you attack unexpectedly, causing opponents to become exhausted just running for their lives. You burn their supplies and raze their fields, cutting off their supply routes. You appear at critical places and strike when they least expect it, making them have to go to the rescue. And then Dumu says that the arts of starving an opponent do not stop at cutting off supply lines. In the late 6th century, Yuan Huaji led an armed force to attack Li Mi. Li Mi knew that Huaji was short on supplies, so he feigned conciliation in order to wear out his troops. Huaji was delighted and fed his soldiers all they wanted, expecting that Li Mi was going to supply them. Subsequently, the food ran out, and the generals from Li Mi's army had pretended to join up with Huaji when went back to Li Mi's camp with their troops. They finally led to Huaji's defeat. Appear where they cannot go. Head for where they least expect you. To travel hundreds of miles without fatigue, go over land where there are no people, says Master Sun. Garkau says, make it impossible for the enemy to get there to the rescue. Appear where there is an opening and strike at a gap. Avoid where they are guarding. Hit where they are not expecting it. Chin Hao, we're just getting to brass tacks here, which is really great for learning. Chin Hao says, striking at an open gap does not only mean where the opponent has no defense. As long as the defense is not strict, the place is not tightly guarded. The generals are weak and the troops are disorderly. The supplies are scarce and the forces are isolated. If you face them with an orderly and prepared army, they will fall apart in front of you. This way, you do not need to labor and suffer, for it is as if you were traveling over unpopulated territory. Yep. I mean, I kind of want to go over that one again. Chin Hao, striking at an open gap does not only mean where the opponent has no defense. As long as the defense is not strict, the place is not tightly guarded, the generals are weak and the troops are disorderly, the supplies are scarce and the forces are isolated. If you face them with an orderly and prepared army, they will fall apart. So it's not only mean where the opponent has no defense, it means where the opponent is weak points and strong. So don't give up. Don't think like, oh well, there's somebody there. You know what I mean? There's somebody there. Okay, so we're about to start the Stoic back over into January 1st. But since we were out of town, we're gonna go ahead and do yesterday's December 31st and January 1st, and see what we can do. December 31st. Get active in your own rescue. Stop wondering about. You aren't likely to read your own notebooks or ancient histories or the anthologies you've collected to enjoy in your old age. Get busy with life's purpose. Toss aside empty hopes. Get active in your own rescue. If you care for yourself at all, and do it while you can. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 3.14. Pi. Okay. All right, so maybe we are invoking Marcus at December 31st because everyone always has a New Year's resolution. So, Ryan Holiday does have a book out now called Perennial Seller, and I think what he's doing is it's a good way, because it's kitschy and tropey, but it's required. Okay, so let's see what he says about Marcus. The purpose of all our reading and studying is to aid us in the pursuit of the good life and death. At some point, we must put our books aside and take action, so that, as Seneca put it, the words become works. There is an old saying that a scholar made is a soldier spoiled. We want to be both scholars and soldiers in the good fight. Are we fighting the good fight? That's what's next for you. Move forward, move onward. Another book isn't the answer. The right choices and decisions are. Who knows how much time you have left or what awaits us tomorrow? Yeah, I think it's good to watch these videos, to read these books, to study these things. But at what point are you reading so much that you're hiding from the world? At what point are you playing too much video games to where you're hiding from the world? I know plenty of successful people who enjoy TV, Netflix, Hulu, video games. They even talk about it. You can. I mean, you can look at Joe Rogan, who plays video games from time to time. It's just a matter of how control of the situation are you. Master yourself, right? So that's what this new year should be about. It shouldn't be about choking anything off. It shouldn't be about eliminating things and staying so strict on a diet and going all the way in. But what's going to lead towards a noble death, a noble life, and a noble death is setting yourself up for failure, something you want to do again, by saying, oh, this is a New Year's resolution? Or should we just go ahead and implement the lifestyle that's going to, over time, brick by brick, get us to the life that we want to have? Because I'll tell you one thing, 10 years ago, I didn't think I'd be where I'm at now. We'll see what another 10 years will do. My story is long and rocky, but everyone's is. January 1st, control and choice. The chief task in life is simply this: to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals not under my control and which have to do with the choices I actually control. Where then do I look for good and evil? Not to uncontrollable externals, but within myself to the choices that are my own. Epictetus, Discourses 2.5.4-5. Yeah. So good and evil is not necessarily about like the world and what's not in your control. We can even look to modern day guys like Jordan Peterson, who talks about cleaning your room, and it's just a metaphor for cleaning up your life, cleaning up the things around you, and just staying neat and tidy. And the more you do that, the better you'll be. Otherwise, you'll be in hell. And I mean, a lot of people find themselves in hell. A hell that they've created and a hell that they can get out of very easily by saying it's over and I'm taking back control of my life. And it's a hard fight. But not to uncontrollable externals, but within myself to the choices that are my own, good and evil. Epictetus. Right. And just as we just read on December 31st, that we're looking to lead a good life and a good death. So the one way to do that, to affect the world eternally, is to try our damnedest to be the best person we can be. The single most important practice in Stoic philosophy is differentiating between what we can change and what we can't. what we have influence over and what we do not. A flight is delayed because of weather. No amount of yelling at an airline representative will end a storm. No amount of wishing will make you taller or shorter or born in a different country. No matter how hard you try, you can't make someone like you. And on top of that, time spent hurling yourself at these immovable options is time not spent on the things that we can change. The recovery community practices something called the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Addicts cannot change the abuse suffered in childhood. They cannot undo the choices that they made or the hurt that they have caused, but they can change the future through the power that they have in the present moment. As Epictetus said, they can control the choices we make right now. And aren't we all addicts? Aren't we all addicts of our emotions, of our desires? At the end of the day, isn't that what we're after? So, when are you going to take control over your emotions and your actions and differentiate that good and evil so that we may have a good life and good death? The same is true for us today. If we can focus on making clear what parts of our day are within our control and what parts are not, we will not only be happier, we will have a distinct advantage over other people who fail to realize that they are fighting an unwinnable battle. Okay. And isn't that what Sun Tzu is saying in The Art of War? Isn't that why we read it? Because at the end of the day, it's an unwinnable battle. Everything's an unwinnable battle. That's why the true art of war is not about warfare strategy and tactics. It's about not going to war in the first place. It's about not having to fight. But in order to not do that successfully, you have to know all of the strategies and tactics during the fight. Because if you don't know all of the variables that can go wrong, you can't just be arbitrarily placed into a situation and know what to do. You have to know what to do to reverse engineer the situation to get out of the fight and to retreat. But if you must fight, you know how to fight. And so that helps you win the battles every day, every month, every year, every decade, right? But at the end of the day, nothing's winnable. Nobody's perfect. At the end of the day, what kind of life have we chosen for ourselves?